This review is going to be straight to the point, very detailed, and I'll give you some helpful tips. So with that said, in the box you get the controller itself, which is 3 pieces. So you get the 2 Joy-Cons and the optional center spine. You get a USB-C cable and a very helpful instruction manual that explains all the features very well, but don't worry, I'm going to show you those in this video. I chose the GameCube inspired color, but you can get black, green, and white. So for $65, obviously these are a huge improvement over the Nintendo Joy-Cons, especially where you won't get stick drift from the Hall Effect joysticks. So it's really easy to put together. The awesome thing about this controller is that it works really well for adults with big hands. You can see, for example, if I take this Joy-Con over here, it's so tiny, right? And I have to reach straight down for the joystick like this. But with this Joy-Con, I have a lot of room here for my hand, and where my thumb rests naturally, I can move it down to hit the joystick a lot easier than going straight down. This controller has 6-axis gyroscope motion sensing for your Switch. You can use it as a traditional controller like this. And if you just want to sit back and relax, you can just keep these loose and play like this, which I actually really like doing. Or you can use it as a loose Joy-Con like this. You can attach this to your Switch really easily. A big selling point with this controller is the customizable lights. So you can see that I can change the color of them, and I'll tell you how to customize these later. You'll notice that you get all the same buttons that you got on your Joy-Con, like the home button, and you can wake up your Switch with this. The screenshot button, your minus and plus buttons. On the top you've got your L and R buttons and the ZL, ZR triggers. A, B, X, Y is laid out the same. The buttons on here are clicky and they have that rubber membrane feel, which means they're also not very loud, which is a good thing. But there are 2 additional buttons down here on the bottom, and these are turbo buttons. On the bottom here you'll see your USB-C charging ports. The full charging time is 2 hours, and the 500 mAh battery is rated to play up to 6.5 hours of playtime. But this will charge if you connect this to your Switch as well. And on the back, you've got these extra buttons. The vibrate buttons are here, and there's 2 M buttons, and these M buttons are how you program these large buttons on the bottom. These buttons at the back can be programmed to do whatever you want, which I will show you later, along with how to use the turbo and vibrate functions. And another neat little feature about the hardware is that on the bottom, you have these little flat surfaces on the corners, so you can stand this controller up. So obviously this works well for displaying the controller, but this would also work if you just want to stand your Switch screen up on a table. Now I'll be very honest with you, when I took this out of the box, I was very skeptical because the first thought I had was, this feels very cheap. And if you've seen other review videos about this, they all say the same thing. But I can promise you that when I used this with the Switch, it performed very well. So the performance is there. Don't let the initial feel of the controller fool you. But what do I mean by cheap? The plastic is really light and feels cheap, and that can be a good thing when you connect these to the sides of your Switch because your whole Switch will be light. Some other things that you'll notice is the D-pad is really stiff. This is probably the stiffest D-pad that I've came across, but it is very clicky and responsive. And even though there is curvature to the D-pad, you won't really notice that curvature when you're using it. It feels flat for some reason. The triggers up here on the top are also really stiff. The best way I can explain it is it takes effort to push them down. Also, if you pay attention to these little gaps where the controller is connected, you can see that it's a little bit wobbly. I can make the gaps open and close a little bit. You can probably see a little bit of movement this way as well. When the controller is locked in, I can still move this, so it is a little bit loose on this spine. However, when these are connected to the side of your Switch, it's a lot tighter and it feels pretty solid. I also mentioned that these are Hall Effect joysticks. That means you'll never have stick drift, and these will work really well, and they do. But from a hardware perspective, you'll notice that these are actually really big, and even though there's a little bit of a dip here, they just feel really bulky and flat and smooth on the top, and there is a little bit of texture on the side, but you don't really notice that. But the good news about this is that you can replace these joysticks, so I'll just haul one out and show you. And if I compare this to the Joy-Con, you can see how much bigger and bulkier it is. To be honest with you, when I was playing, I thought to myself, I would not change these out because this controller plays great. These joysticks have metal rings on them, so when you move them around, they don't cause wear and tear. NYXI is the company that makes these, and they sent me their Hyperion Pro for review, but my viewers can get 10% off their website using the discount code BATPIXEL. I'll have the links down below. So I'm going to give you some very helpful tips with this thing. Let's start with customizing the lights. So if you want to customize the color of these lights or the animation that they make, just hold down on the turbo button and click the stick once and let go, and you'll see that I just changed the color. So there's a bunch of colors in here that you can choose from, including this rainbow color. So if you double click this stick when you hold the turbo button down, you'll get into your different lighting options. So if you double click this once and let go, you'll go into this breathing mode where these lights will breathe different colors. So right now it's red, and then it'll fade over to the next color, which is yellow. If you double click it a second time, you'll go into this breathing rainbow mode. So it'll stay this rainbow color, but it will fade in and out. If you double click this a third time, you can turn the lights off altogether if you want to save battery life, or you don't like the lights. If I click the stick once, I can just turn the light back on. I just went ahead and changed both sides to rainbow color, and something that's very useful to know is you can change the brightness level of these lights. So if I hold down on the turbo button and hit down on the stick, you'll see that this light just went a lot dimmer than this one. I'll bring this one down as well, but if I want to make them brighter again, just hold down on the turbo buttons and hit up on the sticks. On the back you have these vibration buttons which can be customized from 100% all the way down to 0%. So if you want to change these, just hold on them. And you can feel the intensity. You can also turn it off this way. Now to program these back buttons using these little M buttons, I'm actually going to plug this into the switch screen so you can see what I'm programming in the game. If I want to jump to the top of my jump and do a spin, traditionally you'd hit jump and then the trigger to do a spin, right? But if you want to do that perfectly every time by hitting one button, you can program the button at the back to do that for you. So because I'm going to set that up to be the right button at the back, I'm going to hold the small M button on the right controller. Now while I have that button held down at the back, I'm just going to jump and do a spin and let go of the button. So now by hitting the button at the back with one tap, Mario will jump and do a spin with just one click of the button. And it'll work perfectly every time because we've programmed that sequence. So let's program the turbo buttons. It's pretty easy. So for example, if I want to jump, obviously you just hit the jump button, and if I hold the button, you'll only jump once and that's it. But if you wanted to put that into turbo mode, all you'd have to do is hold the turbo button and hit jump. And now when I hold the button, I'll just keep jumping. So it can be useful for different things like jump or fireballs. But you can also program a button to just do it full auto. So if I hold turbo and hit jump again, now it'll just keep doing it by itself non-stop. And if I want to clear the turbo button out, just hold it a third time and hit the button. You also have 3 speeds for turbo. So if you want to adjust any of the turbo speed on this right side, just hold the turbo button and hit the plus sign. And if you want to adjust any of the turbo speed on the left side, same thing, just hold the turbo speed and hit the minus sign. So just for fun, I noticed that if I clicked up on the D-pad, Mario would look up. So I'm going to make Mario headbang by setting this button to turbo. So again, just hold turbo and hit up on the D-pad. And now if I hold it, you can see that Mario will kind of headbang a little bit. But if I want him to go faster, I can hold the turbo button and hit this minus sign up here and get back into the game. Now if I hold up on the D-pad, Mario will headbang really fast. But yeah, the controller does perform very well in game because at the end of the day, what really matters is the gameplay performance. And on top of that, there's so much customization options, and you have the Hall effect joystick so you won't have stick drift. If you found this helpful, check out my full playlist of gaming product reviews.